Hello and welcome back to Seaside Garage. This Lada Niva is at the moment my daily, but I haven't been driving it at all for I think a couple of weeks, maybe even more than that, because I have had a lot of issues with this. Now it's time, hopefully, to get it back on the road. I haven't filmed any of the process. Each and every time I thought it was pretty simple, so I didn't really want to film it. It was just getting some part changed or restored and then back on the car, and then it should be good to go. But each and every time it didn't work. I feel completely sure that the problems will disappear this time, but on the other hand, it could end up being another chapter of this journey. But it is pretty much self-inflicted, most of it, because 3 weeks ago, I think, I made a mistake on this car. I drove it into my driveway, turned it off, and went inside, but I didn't turn it completely off. I left it in ignition for 24 hours. I had a brand new big battery in the car at that moment. The day after, that battery was completely flat, and it's not a good thing. One thing is the battery is flat. It won't turn over, of course. You need to recharge the battery. But this being an old school kind of car with points and condensers and all that, it's not good. So the ignition coil overheated. The points overheated, the condenser overheated, but much to my surprise, I could actually just recharge the battery and start the car up, and it drove just fine for the entire day. Later that day, it cut out at my parents' house and I couldn't get it to run. I was really trying all different kinds of stuff. In the end, I actually went and took the ignition coil off the Datsun, which is nowhere near the right spec for this, put that in. That made it possible to drive it home, but it would not go faster than around 50 kilometers per hour. So I took it home, ordered up a new ignition coil. Then I actually also noticed that the engine seems to be starved a little bit for fuel. So I took a look at the fuel pump. The membrane was really bad. So I rebuilt that with the kit that I had lying around. And the day after, the pump didn't work. Then I took it apart again, and it turned out that the membrane in that rebuild kit that I had lying around couldn't cope with the modern fuels, I think. It was completely swollen, so I ordered up a new fuel pump and put that in. Then I fitted the ignition, and it started up, and it ran completely fine. Then it started stumbling pretty quickly, and then it cut out, and I was puzzled about that. Then I took a look at the points, and the points were completely closed all the way around. I thought maybe I had forgotten to tighten up that screw that holds the points in place. So I reset the points, started it up, and the exact same thing happened. Then I took a closer look at the distributor. I have removed the points right now, but what I found out was that this is so worn that it can be moved from side to side, which actually made it possible to open and close the points just by the clearance of this axle. The ignition point was all over the place, so I ordered up a new distributor. And here we have a new one. I fitted that. The car ran completely perfect for a couple of seconds, then it started stumbling, and then then it stopped running. I checked the points and they were closed once again. But this time I noticed something else. I don't know how well it picks up, but the actual heel down there that rests on the cam that makes the point open and close is melted. It's completely melted. So it's not even touching the cam lobes anymore. I could of course reset it and push it in and make it touch, and I actually did that a couple of times because I was really puzzled about this, but the same thing happened. And I was getting pretty frustrated at this point. Actually, at one point, I started to think that maybe all the cars that I have revived in the past were pure luck. And this was the first time that I really were challenged with a real issue. I was completely puzzled. I couldn't understand why was that melting, what's going on, and I was trying so much different stuff. In the end, I gave up and wrote the parts supplier who has been so helpful all the way through with this build. And told him about this problem. A couple of hours later, he came back to me, and unfortunately, a mistake was made on his homepage. That stuff happens. The ignition coil I bought from him should according to his information, work with the old system. It is slightly more powerful than the old ignition coil, but it should be okay. When he took a closer look at the specifications, it turned out to not at all be the case. This coil is meant for the electronic ignition. It is 7 times more powerful than the original ignition coil. I have not thought about that at all because it stated on the page that it was working. He apologized and was really helpful about all this entire situation. I see no reason in being angry when people makes a mistake, because I know I do that all the time, makes mistakes, and it's a lot easier if people don't rip your head off. He was so cool that he actually sent me a complete new electronic ignition system for my car, because he didn't have the points and the condenser in stock, and this problem needed to be sorted pretty quickly. It is my daily after all, so he just sent me a complete kit for free. So that's really nice, and to be honest, I was just so relieved that there was a reason that was understandable and really hard to find unless you started to look at the specification on the parts in the engine that you were told were going to work. So a bit of my pride came back that evening. That's good. But let's see, it's not running just yet. But what I'm going to do today is to fit the electronic ignition, and hopefully it will just fire up and run like it is supposed to. I have really been fiddling a lot with it, so I'm slightly concerned that I might have damaged some other stuff, because my fingers have been touching everything in this engine bay. I've tried to tweak the timing to see if that was the problem, and got a massive backfire through the car, but it's not the best thing for the engine, but it should be okay. Now I'm going to fit that electronic ignition. So here we go. This is the setup. The ignition control module, I think it's called. A piece of wire, another ignition coil, and a brand new distributor. Yeah, it's a shame I couldn't use the other one that I just bought, but it's not the same, so I'll just have a spare kit for, and that's nice because maybe someone in the future wants to build it back to points. But this is is actually going to be a rather nice upgrade. According to the information about this setup, it should give the car around 1 kilometer more per liter of fuel. So that is also really nice. So I'm just going to go ahead and fit this stuff. If all goes well, I will have the new gearbox for this car next week, so we can fit that and regain a functioning 4th gear. By the way, I made sure that the car is in, or the engine is at top dead center before removing all the other stuff. Like that. It's important that it's grounded good, and it should be now. Now I'm going to attach the coil again. So the engine is supposed to be at top dead center at the moment, so I need to make sure that the distributor is pointing at cylinder number 1. And then fit it. Like so. Yeah, I need to fine adjust the timing once I get it running, of course, with a light. And then I need to fit all the spark plugs, the leads. So the electronic ignition is installed, but before I started, I need to change out the old spark plugs for these with a resistor. That's the R right there. So that should make the system work right. They need to be gapped at 0.7, and they are from factory, so that's great. I'm going to install them. And if everything works, I'm going to clean up the wiring and make sure nothing gets too hot and so on. But I think it's time to try to see if it runs. Oh, I really hope it does, because I have been missing this car. Actually, to the point that I have decided to sell it, but that could be caused by me not driving it. could change because it's a really fun car, this one. Let's find out if it runs. Oh, nice. So at long last, the Lada Niva is running again. Not completely perfect, but pretty close to it. That's really nice. It's been a struggle. So soon I will change the gearbox, but now I can drive it at least. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one.